At that gathering, he waited till they were all there. And then he walked in to his parents, his mother and father, and gave them the degree and said, "This is for y'all." That you all were eager and anxious to make me a doctor. And I went to school just for you all. So I'm giving this degree to you. Now I'm going to seek what God would have in my life. So many people have been moved and ushered into spots and positions because others wanted them to have it, without ever seeking what God has for you. You must know that you're tailor-made by God for a purpose. And if you're sitting in this room now, God is not through with you. Because when God finishes with you, He'll take you out of here. And you should thank God He's not through with me yet, but God has plans for my life. And I should recommend to us, make sure you get the plans from the right person, because others don't know what you and God have going on. The Apostle Paul makes this statement in Acts chapter 9. Let me read it to you again in verse 6. And he trembling and astonished said, "Lord, what wilt thou have me to do?" As quiet as it is kept, that is the question that every one of us in here would ask if we run into the Lord. Not like our president, if our president of the United States would walk in this room this morning, all of us would rise on our feet and give him reverence and accolade because he's the president of the United States. But if Jesus would walk through those doors, every one of us in here would bow on our knees in reverence to Jesus the Christ. And if you would run into Jesus in the flesh and see him and who he is, you would ask this same question: Lord, what would you have me to do? Because you must know that only what you do for Christ will last. Not what you do for you, not what you do for parents, not what you do for your boss, not what you do for your community, not what you do for your job, but what we do for Christ is the only thing that will last. It's amazing that we spend so much time trying to take care of the outward man, and the inward man is perishing. I've shared this with you several times, and I'll rush to the text that this man saw this beautiful young lady. She was very attractive, had everything going for her, but mentally she was not there. Her lights was on, but nobody was home. Her elevator didn't go all the way to the top. But sometimes that's what you call love at first sight. He saw her, he fell in love with her, and he says to her, "I want you to take this box, carry it home with you, and I'm coming over tonight for your answer." She took the box and left. That night he came, rung the doorbell. She came to the door and she grabbed him and hugged him and kissed him. He said, "What do you think about the box?" She said, "Oh, darling, it's so beautiful. I love this box because it's black. It's the color I love." And then when I opened the box up, the felt on the inside was just outstanding. "Thank you so much." And then the hinges, the little gold hinges, they were so beautiful, baby. Thank you for the box. The man paused and dismayed for a moment. He said, well, how about the ring that's in the box? She said, oh, you mean that piece of wire with the glass on top? He said, yes. She said, oh, I threw that away. It's comical, but how many of us marvel over the box, but we throw the jewel away? What does it profit a man to gain the whole world and turn around and lose his own soul? What can a man give in exchange for his soul? Because it's the inside that really counts. And many times we say to each other and say to others, if I only knew what God's will for my life was, then I would do better. There are others that say, I'm afraid to seek out his will, because if I find his will, it might stop me from having fun. But can I tell you, you don't really have fun until you step in his will. You see, there are two things you must always remember. Number one, the day that you was born. You need to remember that day. But secondly, you need to remember the day when you discover why you was born. Just being born is not enough. You need to know why I'm born, because if you're not sure of yourself, you may follow any Tom, Dick, or Harry and headed in the wrong direction. But when you know that you know that you know that you know without any shadow of a doubt that I'm headed in the right direction, and nothing can hinder or stop me from staying on course. One of the things that we must understand is that there are at least three approaches to the will of God. First of all, that's what you call the sovereign will of God. And then there's what you call the standard will of God. And then there's what you call the specific or the special will of God. They all work differently. The sovereign will of God is totally in God's hand. You can't change it if you try. God is sovereign. He do what he want to do whenever he get ready to do it. He's sovereign. Matter of fact, God will allow a population of human beings to walk on planet Earth. And then when God get angry, he'll send a flood and wipe the whole population away and leave only 8 people of his own choosing. And can't nobody do nothing about it. That's God's sovereign will. Matter of fact, if somebody killed your mother or father, you're still looking for them now, trying to find them so you can take them out. But God can walk into your house and take your mama, take your dad, and take your sister and brother, carry on back to heaven. And all you will do is look up through tear-stained eyes and say, though you slay me, yet will I trust in you. Because God can do whatever God wants to do when God get ready to do it. Am I here by myself? Because he is sovereign. I need to also tell you, you can't figure God out. Because if you could figure God out, you would be smarter than God. And I don't know nobody can figure God out. God is too omnipresent to be absent. He's too omnipotent to be weak. He's too omniscient to be dumb. He's too right to be wrong. He's too holy to be defiled. He's too exact to error. He's too punctual to be late. Talk to me, somebody. I guess what I'm trying to tell you, God is so high, you can't go over him. He's so low, you can't go under him. He's so wide, you can't go around him. You cannot resist God's plan. You cannot ruin God's purpose, but you cannot deny God's power. Because God is sovereign. That's why we have to watch how we act in his presence, because you can't play with God. God can do what he wants. Y'all ain't saying that. Do what he want to do. Can I tell you a little about God can take 2 thighs, 2 drumsticks, 2 legs. He can take a neck, a back, a gizzard and a liver, a cackle and a crow, and feathers, and put them all in one fur leg. God, talk to me somebody, can take vines. He can take the blossom and the bloom. He can take 100 foot of vine, put the felt, put the rind, put the red in it, and 100 other watermelon seeds in the one watermelon seed. God can take a 500 tall tree, 500 feet high, and put it into 1 acre, because God is God. Have I got a witness? God, and you say, well, I'm as smart as God. If you're that smart, where do the storm hide when it's over? If you that smart, tell me where darkness go when light show up. If you that smart, how high is up? How low is down? If you that smart, tell me how is it that rainwater is healthy, but dew is poison? Y'all ain't saying that there. Tell me, if you that smart, who? Y'all don't hear me. God is, he's sovereign. He do what he want to do whenever God get ready. That's why you ought to tremble just at the name of God. We have a witness in this house. Can't play with the God I serve. He's sovereign. He do what he want to do when God get ready. That's why you have to learn how to say, as Job said, though you slay me, yet will I trust in you. Job got upset one day about God. He said, if I could find him, I'd give him a piece of my mind. He kept saying that, and God came to Job's house. He said, Job, where were you when I hung the sun, moon, and stars? Job, where were you when I scooped out the sea with the palm of my hand and caught it in the hem of my garments? Where were you, Job? His sovereign will. That's why when God moved, matter of fact, he just moved a couple years ago. He came through Memphis. They say he started this in China. He didn't have to start in China. He could start any way he wanted. Over 1 million people left out of here. And we ain't been figured out yet. We've been in laboratories ever since trying to figure out where it came from. You can't find where it came from because you don't know where it came from, because God is sovereign. What you better do is thank God he left you here. You do know we're not here because we've been so holy. We're not here because we've done everything right. But God pick who he want to hang around, and who he don't, he just let them sleep on. Do I have a witness? It's God's sovereign will. But then there's God's standard will. Standard will mean that God has a will that don't change. He sets it in stone from the beginning. Genesis 2:24, for this cause shall a man, Hebrew word ish, shall leave his father and his mother, shall cleave unto his wife, Ishah, and you two shall be one flesh. He settled it in his standard will that a man should be married to a woman, and a woman married to man. Ish and Ishah, not Ish and Ish. Not Ishah and Ishah. Y'all ain't helping me in this house. It's his standard will. His standard will. If I'm going to heaven, I got to get saved. got to believe that Jesus died for my sin and rose again on the third day. That's the only way I can get in there. I don't care how saved Mama was. I can't get to heaven on Mama's religion. I can't get to heaven on second-handed religion. I got to know him for myself. Not know about him, I got to know him. His standard will is that the soul that sinneth shall die. Romans 6:23 says, for the wages of sin is death. The gift of God is eternal life. His standard will. Talk to me, somebody. God don't wait until we mess up before he plans stuff. God set the plan before we get here. Talk to me if you can. God set the plan for all of our lives. Jeremiah chapter 1 said, before you was formed in your mother's belly, I knew you. I sanctified you. I ordained you. It was a surprise to you, but it wasn't no surprise to God. You say, I'm living miserable. I've been in church all my life. It could be in church, but you're out of the wheel. I think I got y'all in here now. You can be in church and be outside the will of God. And I don't care what you do, if it's out of his will, it ain't gonna work. Talk to me, somebody. You boxing with God and your arms, they're too short to box with God. You ain't gonna win fighting against God. I wish y'all see how y'all looking at me. You can't drink yourself out of situations. You can't drug yourself out of situations. You can't sleep with enough people to make yourself right if you're outside of the will of God. The safest place to be is in his will. The most dangerous place to be is outside of the will of God. Don't let nobody push you outside the will of God. Don't never get mad enough to let somebody push you outside the will of God, because they ain't living for you. God has given you assignment. Whom shall I send? Who will go for us? Do I have a witness? There is his sovereign will. There's his standard will. I've encountered the sovereign will. God picked my mother. God picked my dad. My dad was 52 years of age when I was born. My mother was 25. She wanted an older man, and he wanted a younger woman. My mother never went to school a day in her life. Other than my senior year in school, when I got expelled from school, she took me back for them to whip me. My daddy made it to the second grade, but I didn't pick them. God picked my parents. His sovereign will. Be careful how you upset with your parents, because God picked them. He knew the mama you needed. He knew the daddy. Y'all ain't saying nothing. He knew the daddy, and sometimes we spend too much time looking back over what happened to me yesterday. Forget what's behind you. God is sovereign. Talk to me, somebody. He can pick who he want to pick. He can bring message out of misery. When I was young, coming up, Mama would have me going up to the barn, getting cow and horse manure. I'd bring it in containers, and Daddy fixed little boxes all around the front, around the porch, and I'd pour that manure in those boxes. And Mama would set out tomato plants and sweet potato plants. And they would grow, and after it got so large, we'd take them out and set them in the field. Mama turned manure in the fertilizer. Now, Mama could take mess and turn it into fertilizer. God can take messy stuff, messy situations, and turn it into something great. Well, y'all looking at me strange. I ain't always been where I am now. I was a mess in the arena of auto mechanics. When the Lord ran into me, my frame was bent out of shape. My engine had thrown a rod. My transmission was slipping. My universal joint had fallen out. My radiator was boiling over. My tires were on flats. My brakes wouldn't work. My lights wouldn't come on. But Jesus picked up the pieces. How many know he can take a mess and turn it into a miracle? We have a witness. Not only have I encountered the sovereign will of God, I've encountered the standard will of God. Because I walked down the aisle one Thursday night. I gave the preacher my hand. I gave God my heart. And can I tell you what the Lord did? He took his red blood, put it on my black heart, and he washed it whiter than snow. That's his standard will. If you're going to see him, you got to be saved. You got to be born again. That's the sovereign will, standard will. God has a special will for every last one of us in this house. How do I know what his special will is for me? Because it said in Matthew 6:10, he said, when you pray, pray after this manner. He says, thy kingdom come, thy will be done. God wants his will done. He wants his will done by kingdom people. He don't put his will in the hands of strangers. He wants his will done. So, preacher, how can I know a will? What place do I need to go to find it? Y'all ask so many good questions. Romans 12:1. If you got it. If you don't have it, put it on the screen. It says, I beseech you therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that number one, you present your body. That must be presentation. I got to present a present to God. What present? I got to give him my body. First Timothy 3 and 1 says, if you have a desire, the word desire means to stretch. It means